Hi everyone, so the Ethereals in Season 24 are gonna add a lot of interesting new setups to the game. One of them is a different variation of Solo Rat runs. So Necromancers get a quite special weapon called the Black Hand Key, which has the special effect that it fears enemies in place for 7 seconds when you curse them. And this allows you to do solo rat runs in a very different setup than before. So usually solo rats are not really much of a thing, but they are not that bad because you can run really fast. You can just, rush through the rift, clear everything easily, just like you do in 4-man, but you are a bit more squishy and you have to do everything on yourself. So typically this has been done with stacking a lot of cooldown reduction and going permanent Land of the Dead with frozen lands, so you can actually survive and CC stuff for Crispin. But now you have this curse effect, and if you stack some pickup radius, you have a rather big aura of frailty that will apply this fear effect and allow your mages to benefit from the damage buffs and allow you to survive. So the setup looks like this, and it is nothing really special, just a typical rat run. And here is the Black Hand Key with this curse effect. So interesting weapon, and it's gonna make solo rat runs not really competitive, I'd say, but it is probably one of the best setups that the Solo Necro can do now that Bone Spear has been nerfed. Ethereals also is not really feeling that great anymore. I've actually briefly tried it on the PTR with Corpse Explosion, but since the invincibility was removed from Land of the Dead and Migration, making that setup really perform well is not all that great. So solo rat runs is kind of one of the ways to go for Necromancers if you don't play in groups. I wouldn't say it is like anywhere close to the top meta, but my setup here has been very unoptimized. I had really crappy gear, and with a bit more optimization, going all the way to like 110 or so would still be kind of comfortable, which in my case was around 5 tiers behind what I was doing with something like Inner Monk and God DH, but this is a slightly faster pace. So overall, a pretty solid setup and something definitely worth trying if you like to play Necromancer a lot. The playstyle is very simple to explain, but it's kind of difficult to do because you want to keep up your Squirt's necklace, so you want to make sure you never take any damage and you don't have any protection for your Squirt's necklace, and you are also kind of squishy. So essentially you run the rift, you cast your simulacrums because they will duplicate your mages and give you more maximum essence for your singularity mages. Whenever your resources are full, which you refill with mostly devouring aura, you will cast your mages, and that's about it. I used the Circle of Naluge here so that mages last longer and you summon more of them. This makes it quite easy to maintain 10 mages all the time. But if you really optimize this and you go at a really fast pace, you could also drop this for conventional elements, just like people typically do in rat runs if they want to optimize it. So this way you get roughly 3 tiers more in terms of DPS, but it's gonna be slightly more inconsistent and also much harder to play because you really have to navigate your way through the rift very well to not run into dead ends very much, and you can always refill your resources properly with devouring aura really quickly because you have to cast your mages like every 2 seconds. This requirement is much more relaxed, so 1 mage cast every 5 seconds or so is totally fine with Circle of Naluge. So this is definitely recommended for beginners. When you engage enemies, you just want to run into them quickly, fear them through the aura of frailty, and then they will stand in place for 7 seconds and you can actually move away again if you like to get into a safer position or something like that in case there's ground effects all around. Be a bit careful about juggernauts because they will actually be very difficult to kill. They might have some dangerous affixes that will just cast at you because those can't be feared, and they also take much less damage because of the missing Crispin effect. The stat requirements are quite simple. You don't really need cooldown here. It's mostly for Blood Rush and for Bone Armor, but you don't have to cast either of that very often because you run quite quickly anyway, and you can just stack pure damage, skeletal mage damage, maybe air damage on the shoulders or something like that, maybe some attack speed because this actually scales the damage of the mages, and that's about it. And as long as you have this, you can focus on getting pickup radius on your secondaries for the extra radius for aura frailty. If you have something like 10-12 yards or more on all your gear, this will already help a lot because of the bigger aura, so this is definitely what makes these runs much more smooth. And then you also focus on pickup radius as your secondaries and maybe some toughness. The pickup radius helps you a lot with the increased aura radius because some of the types are extremely dangerous and you want to make sure that you get all of them feared as fast as possible, because for example these Lacunis or assassins or archers, they might just shoot at you or jump at you from a large distance, so you always have to kind of like rush in, make sure they are CC'd, and then you're fine. And that's already about it for what you need to know about this build. So it is quite straightforward, just a bit difficult to execute in some places, but most of the time you're gonna be okay. So it's not really one of the top farming builds for solo. If you play a Necromancer, you most likely just want to go for rat runs anyway, but if this is not an option sometimes, then here's a solo alternative for you. So this is how you can farm your gear quite easily. This also works like a charm in T16. You can even get in a lot more like, you know, speed options and a bit greedier choices, maybe even gold skin and stuff like that. A similar setup also works very well in something like T16, but you can go for a variety of setups there with like much greedier choices, maybe much more movement speed, maybe even a gold skin and boons a hoarder and all that stuff. So in T16 this is definitely a very great build, and for solo GRs also works fine. So hope you enjoyed this little video, and see you guys next time.